I have a theory, and it's backed by science. Let me explain. If you've never seen Encanto, it's about a family full of people who have basically superpowers, except for one girl, and she's more or less ostracized by her grandma. And also, the uncle lives in the walls with the rats, and he has a 7-foot frame with his rats along his back. When he calls your name, it all fades to black. Okay, moving on. So as I said before, everybody in this family has a superpower except for Mirabelle, who's the one in the glasses below, and Abuela over here. Abuela is the head matriarch and everybody listens to her, and she kind of ostracizes Mirabelle to the point she has to live in the nursery as a grown-ass woman. And everybody just kind of accepts it. But I promise we'll come back around to that. So what happens is whenever one of these kids turns 8 years old, they get their superpowers, or just, they call them gifts. There's like this great big ceremony where they light these candles and they have to go up to the door. And then when they turn the doorknob gives them their powers or something like that. And there's a party. They are so serious about this whole ceremony that because Mirabelle doesn't have any powers, she's basically not allowed to touch anything because they're afraid that the next person, the person who is supposed to be getting their powers, won't get their powers. So where did these powers originate? So the story in the movie goes that Abuela and her husband had triplets. And then some bad people came into their village and tried to take over. Well, they tried to escape with the rest of everybody else in their village. But Abuela's husband was killed on the way. And then she thought they were going to starve and die. But somehow the triplets ended up with powers. One has time, one can heal with food, and the other controls the weather. And they managed to survive and build a house and everything. And because of this, she's very grateful and uses their powers to kind of help build up the community and keep everybody safe. And then the family kind of becomes the big protectors of the village. They're like the head family, more or less. So this is where the theory comes in. So throughout the movie, Abuela is kind of obsessed with doing everything they can for the community, like 24/7. Luisa's always carrying things. Pepe's always trying to like control her emotions so it doesn't rain like ever. So on and so forth. And when we have the one outlier family member, she does everything she can to kind of separate her from everybody else. So my theory is, thinking about it and going through my own experiences, I believe that Abuela has trauma-based obsessive compulsive disorder. So I found this article from the National Institute of Health. And while they can't effectively prove it, they do have consistent data that says experiencing trauma can trigger obsessive compulsive like behaviors. You're more than welcome to pause to read this, but I'm going to summarize it a little bit. So an obsession is a thought, an urge, or an image that is unwelcome in your head. It's basically an intrusive thought. And then your compulsive behaviors are what you might try to do to subdue or make the thought go away. So it might start as you're having this obsessive thought that something's going to happen to your family. And you're going to try to subdue this thought by like flipping the light switch on and off a few times. And then somehow it morphs into, if I don't flip the light switch on and off, say 8 times, then something's going to happen to my family. So what does this have to do with Abuela? So my thoughts being is that you can absolutely see how OCD might come through the cracks with Abuela, especially with her obsession with Mirabelle basically not touching anything during the ceremony. If not everything goes exactly right, then the person who is supposed to be receiving the gift might not receive the gift. At every other point with every other family member, everything goes off without a hitch except Mirabelle. Mirabelle is that outlier. And I think in a way that makes Abuela uncomfortable. The other way I think that she shows she is suffering with intrusive thoughts is the way she insinuates everybody work 24/7 for the community. I think that she thinks if they aren't grateful 24/7 and they aren't constantly using their powers to do something good, then they will have it taken away. And that's the ultimate fear, is that everybody loses their powers and then they no longer have a home. The powers are their security. So going back to what I was saying, I believe that it is specifically trauma related. Abuela, if I remember correctly, watched her husband die and was left with 3 children. Watching your spouse pass is absolute trauma, especially violently. All in one night, she lost her home, she lost her husband, and then she thought she was going to lose her 3 children. That's absolutely enough trauma to trigger obsessive-like behaviors. So all of this to say, I think it goes a whole lot deeper than just Abuela hating Mirabel. However, it does not negate her actions towards Mirabel. It explains it, but does not excuse it. Everybody struggles in one form or another, but it's also important to take personal responsibility in how you treat others. The end.